Hello and welcome to Let's Talk About Live Shopping. I'm your host, Cynthia Nelson, three-time entrepreneur, Forbes contributor, investor, and advisor. Today, and for our first podcast of the 2024 new season, we have the amazing Evie Moss, CEO of MossAppeal. Good morning, Evie, and thank you so much for joining us.
Cynthia, what a great way to kick off the year. Thanks for having me.
No, I mean, I think you probably are covering more in a year in terms of what's actually happening in marketing and news and out of home and retail. I mean, you're covering everything under the gamut and under the sun. So I thought we needed to kick off what you saw, and let's just kind of look at things that are in growth mode from a media marketing perspective and where you think they're kind of heading. I know you're at CES next week, and
Right.
we'll make sure that everybody knows where you're going to be in case they want to meet up with you, get an interview, talk to you, or just, understand and download your brain power to theirs, like get that suction
A
effect.
Vulcan mind meld.
The
Yeah.
Vulcan, exactly, to be the Vulcan mind meld. So let's just dive in. Podcasting was something that we talked about earlier in the year, and I know you have your own podcast, but what have you seen in the kind of the rise of it overall?
Yeah. And so I will say that my brain power and what I'll share with you comes from picking up the brain power of a lot of other people on Insider Interviews, my show about media marketing and advertising. So I'm happy to parrot some brilliant people. One of the episodes that was particularly informative about podcasting, I think, was with the founder of Sounds Profitable, Brian Barletta, and also the Chief Insights Officer of Signal Hill Insights, Paul Reismandel, and one of the heads of ad sales of an audio network, Odyssey. And they were talking about how the business has really, really evolved. One of the things that we still want to try to do with podcasting is up our awareness of it. It's still being consumed, and don't quote me on stats, but I want to say 35% of the US pop is weekly listener, let's say. I might have that wrong. Tom Webster is the king of research over there at Signal Hill, but they are coming out with some amazing research. So, as the business has evolved, what's happened? Something you love, we're shifting more to those who are almost preferring to consume their podcasts as video podcasts. So, we are redefining what a podcast is. There are Puritans who believe that it has to have an RSS feed. I happen to agree with that. Other than that, it's a YouTube video, right? So
Mhm.
Brian's point is come at it from a holistic standpoint. Come at it from creating a podcast as a podcast and then be on other channels like YouTube, or even Spotify has video as well. So the great evolution, and 4 in 10 now would listen to a show as video. So they'll go on YouTube and they'll actually listen, even if they're not necessarily focused on watching.
Yeah, I found that too with my podcast, right? That I thought that just video only would be super, super interesting to everybody. But I found also a kind of maybe the opposite. People really want to listen to the audio kind of
Yeah,
without the video because they can do it at the gym. These are short interviews,
that's
it's
right.
not super long. So I thought the growth would be like the video be overwhelmingly the way people would, but it's not. It's almost kind of 50-50, with more on my side, at least leaning towards the audio side of the podcast, just because just the convenience
Yeah,
of
agree.
listening in the background, not having to watch.
Yeah. The other thing that's right up your alley, because I know that we'll talk about some branded things as
Yeah.
well, is that if you're a brand fan, you will be inclined to listen to a show by a brand.
Yeah.
So look at how popular Trader Joe's is. And I
Yeah.
actually conflated that number about video. It was if you're a brand fan, 4 in 10 fans of brands will listen to or be inclined to listen to a show about a brand.
Yeah. You see it all over the place. It doesn't have to be someone famous that's doing it. And I was going to talk to you about what you thought more brands were looking at in the future in terms of, using some of their marketing dollars for podcasting.
Yeah, I think that we're really seeing blurred lines. I think blurred lines is going to be the theme of our conversation today. As you know, all kinds of media channels shift and morph into each other and convergence and things like that. So branded content, we see it in video, we see it in podcasts. I just mentioned Trader Joe's as, a regular all-time favorite in the podcast hit list. And even mine is sponsorable, but it's explanatory journalism. So
Right.
if you're giving, whether it's a brand reaching out to a consumer or a B2B podcast like mine, you're still giving companies the opportunity to discuss their value proposition, but in an educational, informative, and entertaining way.
And it's authentic, it
Yeah.
feels a lot more authentic when it's what so let's switch topics for a minute and go to, something that I think is really near and dear to my heart in the retail media side.
Yeah.
Everybody's talking retail media this, media is retail, retail is media. You know, what's actually really happening in retail media? What is retail media? First of all, I don't like a lot of people talk about it. It's like, brand affinity. Like, what is it? What does it really mean? How do people talk about it? What's the right way to talk about it?
Yeah, and that's where that word blurred lines comes in again, right?
Yeah.
And by the way, did I mention that I used to babysit for the writer of Blurred Lines, Robin Thicke?
Oh, that's so
Just a little
funny.
sidebar.
First podcast of the year sidebar. I love it.
I believe in humanizing executives.
Exactly.
Anyway, retail media. You know, we had our end cap, end aisle displays,
Yep.
right? And shelf talkers and take one coupons that could be considered retail media. And then the evolution of that as things have gotten digitized and we're able to reach consumers all along that consumer journey. We're doing things like digital out of home is now appearing in store. And
Mhm.
it's also on the path to purchase, which is why digital out of home is so popular these days. So, retail media, it can be considered anything that captures the sort of data of the consumer and informs them about their shopping experience. It could be, the billboard on the way to the grocery store. It could be the way GSTV or Volta, which was acquired by Shell, have signage now at the gas station pumps, or rather at the EV charging
Yeah.
uh,
Station.
pumps,
Yeah.
right in front of the uh, consumer store. So that's retail media as well. But then we're also looking at online
That
shopping.
yeah.
And so anything that Target is doing or Walmart, which is really creating a whole retail media network in RMN, that's retail media also because they are creating a media network by a retailer. So we're reaching that consumer when they're shopping online, using entertainment to draw them in, making it shoppable, your best friend, and then also communicating, hopefully, that same message in contextual environments when they're on their way to purchase or at store.
Or at store or at the SKU itself. I mean, there's these
Yep.
really interesting, VR, things that they're doing now at point of purchase. The connection of the consumer to the retailer. I mean, retailers have been, the direct purchasing place where everybody's going to shop, right? You're shopping at a retailer store originally, right? And the data where they were collecting really was sales data.
Yep.
And now I feel like it's more demographic data. It's getting deeper into it's psychographic data, it's personalization data, it's personality driven data. There are a lot more ways to accurately capture and figure out that who those consumers are, right? What's
Yeah.
your and where are they in their funnel, right? Where are they actually in the buy process of the funnel?
Yeah. And I think that we're so challenged by first party data and who owns that data and the demise of cookies.
Yep.
Now, what I think will be really interesting is zero party data.
Yeah.
So, the other thing that we want to talk about is what's old is new again.
Yep.
So zero party data is basically a way to get that data about Cynthia Nelson, about EB Moss, through, oh, let's say download a white paper, or enter a sweepstakes and
Mhm.
capture that data, right? Everything else is a walled garden. And so we're
Yep.
having such trouble with apples to apples research and demographics. So that's one way to solicit that. And I think that retail media is a great way to capture data.
Yeah, I think it's just gonna grow. It's on the tip of everyone's tongue. And I'm sure, next week you're gonna be at CES.
Yep.
And who are you meeting with? What are you excited to see? Because it's such a big show. I
Oh,
mean, it is such a massive show.
I know.
What are you excited?
130,000.
Yeah, it's just, what are you excited to see? What do you think is gonna be really interesting to bring back?
Well, I'm such a geek. I love, what's coming around the corner all the time. So I just love being at CES. I will say that a couple of years ago, I moderated a panel, the first ever track on voice. So, your smart speaker and that kind of
Right,
thing.
right, right.
So, voice is huge. And there are a lot of new technologies coming out that are enhancing and supporting that. I won't even get into AI because we'll just assume that that's everything and infused in everything.
Yep.
Um, but that's one aspect. Accessibility, that's really cool. A couple of years ago, also, they had revealed um, a mass transit train or subway kind of car that was highly accessible, where a visually impaired person would
Mhm.
receive cues about the train that was coming and when it was
Yep.
stopping. So we're seeing all kinds of cutting edge evolution. I saw one thing that I really want to go by. I think it's from a company called Mirai from Japan. And what they've created, we have the sound bars for
Mhm.
your TV set to give you
Yep.
that theater sort of sound.
Right.
This one will actually help enhance the conversational tones
Huh.
of TV shows, because as we get older, it's a little bit harder to distinguish from all of the cacophony around us. So,
I
so many different things.
those are two, and you said AI is everywhere. It is just going to be everywhere, everywhere. I
Yeah.
love those two. Going back to what's happened, you've done some really amazing podcasts in the last, couple of years. What's the
Mhm.
news? What's kind of new that's happened? What did you report on last year that you thought, oh, I'm really either shaken by it, surprised by it, or yes, 100% of course, and want to share with the audience?
Well, I think that you just summed it up. You teed me up beautifully with the word news. And I am just blown away by that. I started as a cub reporter at a local paper. So my brother was the head writer for Wolf Blitzer on CNN. So news is definitely part of my DNA.
Yeah.
And um, I will highly recommend that you listen to my episode with Lou Pascalis. Lou used to run media at big brands like B of A and Amex. He's an advisor now for a company called Adfontes Media, which does almost real time analysis of any biases in news reporting.
Mhm.
He's such a pundit. He's so brilliant. And he talks about the fact that news is one of the highest ROAS opportunities, return on ad spend. And yet he's fighting to get brands to reinvest in news. He thinks that it's a brilliant investment. And he also talks about it being one of the best drivers of unduplicated reach.
Mhm.
Because when you watch news, a quality news program, you're so loyal. You
Yeah.
tend to turn to news first before anything else. So that's one thing. And then it also has one of the highest income and education skews of all demographics. So, fighting for news to come back as a quality source. And I'll also, while I'm at CES, be talking to Matt Prohaska and one of his consulting clients, about the need to rebrand news, if you will. So I'm looking forward to that conversation.
Do you think news has gotten a really bad rap? If you think about it in the last 4, 5, 6 years, let's just be clear, because there's fake news. And I think a lot of individuals in this country, if you don't read more than one publication, if you hear something in a New York Times and then you read the Washington Post and then you read something else and something, you're going to get a more well-rounded view of actually what really happened. But if you're, I think there have been so many opportunities that we all know about where just purely bullshit is on the
Yeah.
news and it's has nothing to do with reality and it's not been fact checked. That I think maybe that's where brands, from a brand, safety perspective, right? They're
Mhm.
worried about putting I mean, throw it out, no one in their right mind wants their ads to be next to something that includes Nazis. Hello, X, Twitter, Elon Musk. And his opinion was, you know, fuck the advertisers, let the world decide, whatever that means. But advertisers, I think, are really scared about news. And are those news sources checked and are they, really done well? And I think that maybe is what's holding them back because they used to be all over the place. I mean, think about it.
Well,
Brands were everywhere in the news.
and that I think you've illustrated the gauntlet that's been thrown down. It's a little bit of a vicious cycle. So if advertisers recognize that brand safety is, definitely being vetted by companies like Adfontes and Prohaska and things like that, they'll recognize that investing in news media helps raise the bar and up the quality of reliable services like that. We can't afford to have our news, suck anymore. And so we all need to pull together. And what's happening, and what Lou will explain much better than I, is that when companies opt for historical brand safety and they want to stay away from certain keywords, what ends up happening is that they don't realize that their dollars are being invested by, the young media buyer who's told to stay away from that word, into MFAs, made for advertising sites, which suck even worse than anything. So that's not quality journalism. So the vicious cycle continues, where invest in quality programs, trusted services, and you can find rankers of this. And by the way, I'm going to shill for them a little bit because I think it's a brilliant woman founded product. Adfondas has a sort of right leaning person, a left leaning person, and AI in the middle, doing almost instantaneous assessments of news stories so that we can see the most trusted and most reliable services. So that's available to the smart CMO, the smart media buyer. And again, I'll cite him again, but Lou says, CEOs, you've been put in business for a reason, for making smart decisions. Don't let your dollars, be frightened away into an MFA. Ooh, that rhymed. So
No, exactly. There you go. There's your first for the year. Um, it's been such a pleasure talking to you. I know you'll be back on this year. I can't wait for people to meet you at CES. So tell them when you're going to be there, where you're going to be, and your email address quickly so that they can get in touch with you.
thank you. I'll be hanging out, reporting a lot about digital out of home, about branded video. I'll be recording a podcast episode. And let's see, I will be hanging out at cocktail lounges, at brand innovators. That should be interesting because Linda Yaccarino will be speaking there. Mark Cuban will be speaking there.
That will be
Um,
amazing.
so find me, EB at MossAppeal.com, like Mass Appeal, but with an O, EB at MossAppeal.com. I look forward to connecting with everyone. I hope you'll listen. And, we'll talk about everything from digital out of home to audio.
Awesome. Thank you so much, EB. Have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, Cynthia.